the Personnel and Finance meeting for December 11th. First off, I need approval of the agenda. Yeah, motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Second up, or third up here would be public comment. Any public comment? Any public comment? No public comment. Move on to item 4. 4A be the minutes from November 13th. If there's no changes, need a motion and support to approve the minutes. We have motion support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. On to 4B, our quarterly treasurer's report. Welcome, Karen.
Good morning. I was just looking at the screen. It doesn't look like we've got the right agenda up, but I'm sure they're working on it. Good morning, I'm here today before you to present our quarterly report for the County Treasurer's Office. This was sent to you, so I'm not going to pull it up on the screen. Just a couple of quick updates. Your monthly investment reports have been sent, so you should have received those via email, and they're posted on the Treasurer's webpage. Should I wait? Technical difficulties?
Get the agenda fixed on the screens.
Okay, great.
You are correct. We had Human Services up.
Okay, so that's available for you to review. We had a site visit at the Mechanic Street site with the Michigan State Land Bank and several members of the MDEQ that happened on October 27th. I was asked by the executive director of the State Land Bank what we needed to do in our community, and I explicitly told them that we need assistance with commercial and industrial properties. So his interest was piqued and he wanted to take a look at the site, so we took I think there was about 10 of us, right, Mike? I think you were there, and there was a bunch of people there. We walked through the site. They got to see the full scope of the building and the area around there. It was raining miserably, but it is my hope that the powers that be at the state, whether it be through the Land Bank or the DEQ, and we were talking about getting the DNR involved because that site is very close to the Grand River, which is a wonderful natural resource in our community that we need to protect and preserve. So we're trying to figure out what to do with that property. So basically this was an initial site visit, and hopefully they will get their heads together at the state and look to ideally find funding to help us deal with this property. As you know, there is contamination still there. The EPA came and did a huge cleanup. I actually have an update to provide today with regard to that. The EPA will be in town tomorrow to visit the site again. There's one regulatory agency that had some history on that property. I think there was some type of electric heaters that were built in that building at some point, so one of the regulatory agencies wants to come and look at the site to make sure. I'm not sure if there's any contamination, but they just wanted, they had something in their file records to that and are wanting to come to us, an area of that building to check it out. So they're going to be in town tomorrow looking at the site in the lovely snow. So keep your fingers crossed that we can move forward with that, but as of right now, that's my current update for that property on Mechanic Street.
Excuse me, Karen. Did
Yes,
you say
please.
There is still contamination there?
There are still some barrels, some larger vats that the EPA could not remove. One because of the size of the vats, as well as they ran out of their program Superfund dollars. So there's two, I think, and one, it's in the middle of the building. But yes, there is still some there, but they got the worst of the contamination out of the building. It is about the money, and I'm hoping tomorrow when he comes, you can bet I'm going to be in his ear, contact with the EPA and say, can you guys come back? We want you to come back.
It's a budgeting issue, and they got to wait for a new year to get more money?
Well, it was the previous fiscal year that they came in and did the Superfund cleanup, so I'm hoping that when I speak to our contact tomorrow that they can eke out some money yet this year. So keep your fingers crossed. It's definitely something that I'm going to push for.
Yeah, we're planning on them coming back and finishing the job, correct?
That would be the best-case scenario, but as you know, it depends on the funding. And at the federal level, we've heard that the EPA may be experiencing some cuts, so it really, I don't know, maybe they'll have some insight tomorrow to share with regard to that.
Yeah, could you send out an email, let us know?
I certainly can.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Karen,
Absolutely.
those two big vats you were talking about, they emptied them but left the vats? Is that what they did, I hope, or no?
One of them still has contaminants in them, and I believe the other one was partially
Emptied?
emptied.
In other words, partially full?
Mm-hmm.
The building has a number of roof leaks too. All it takes is water to fill back up in there, and at that point, they'll still have to run it back through the same kind of process, empty it. It's not a matter of whether they can, it's just all about the money.
It is.
They've cleaned up sites larger than this, so that they can do it. It's just show us the dollars, right?
Right, and that's why I wanted them to go to the site.
Yeah.
You need to really go there, boots on the ground, so to speak, and see the magnitude of what we're talking about. So, the EPA did a phenomenal job for Jackson County back when they were doing the cleanup in 16. So we just need to have them come back and finish the job. So definitely on my radar, I'm going to work on that, and I'll have some updates after our meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, sure.
Any more questions on Carl?
Karen, obviously, there's a lot of contaminants in various buildings throughout Jackson County, but in this particular case, so are they saying that it's acceptable? Especially if they leave it sitting there, are they saying to us, we find this acceptable?
Well, acceptable, as you know, could mean different things to different people. They removed the highly contaminated materials. That was their number one priority. So it's still an issue. There still is contamination there. Is it acceptable? Not by my standards, but I'm not the EPA. So we do need to look to do something with that.
Further discussion?
Do you,
Commissioner Mahoney?
how you doing, Karen?
Great, how are you?
I'm good. Do you have an idea of what it would cost to continue the rest of the cleanup of whatever's left over?
I do not have any figures with regards to that. It's specialized cleanup. That's why we brought in the experts in the EPA. They have peoples and funding for that and expertise. So I don't have a dollar figure, but I can certainly check with them tomorrow to see what we're talking about. Ideally, we've got to get the site clean before we look to take the next steps for the future of that site and the land that surrounds it. So, we'll keep working on it. You're welcome.
Okay.
Great,
Ready to
thank
move
you
on.
for the questions. I appreciate the interest. We also had a press conference back at the beginning of November just to let everyone know about the Step Forward Michigan Foreclosure Prevention Program. I've talked about this to you many, many times. The program's been in implementation stage now since 2010. There are still dollars that are left. In fact, I think there's $30 million left throughout the state of Michigan. So if you know any of your constituents or anyone that's facing foreclosure, there is this program, the Step Forward Michigan Foreclosure Program. They have a loan rescue option, and if you qualify, they can get some dollars to help pay those delinquent taxes that are due and owing, not only to my office, also to the local units. So it's a great program. Many people in the Jackson area have taken advantage of it, so we're just trying to get the word out that there's still funding available for that. And it's now December. We're marching up to our March 31st deadline, so I'm going to do everything I can to spread the word to that there's this resource that's available and let people hopefully use it to prevent foreclosure. So just as FYI there. And we also did, it was kind of nice, we had the county treasurers from Lenawee County, Branch County, and Hillsdale County come up for the press conference. So it was a great opportunity to bring my peers into our community. The dog license program, our dog license revenue is up over $20,000 this year as compared to last year. And I attribute that to the new program that we rolled out, allowing those that have dogs to get them licensed via our online dog license program, and also offering the 3-year dog license. People now are starting to get the word out, and when they're going to get their beloved animals rabies vaccinations, they're taking advantage of that 3-year dog license. So, and we're seeing now with the implementation of this new program, every week, basically, we're getting a lot of dog licenses coming in. So it's more steady throughout the year. It's not just in November and December when we're seeing the licensing. That was kind of typical when we had the old program. So now the revenue spread more evenly throughout the year, and obviously revenue is up. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And if you have a dog, make sure that you license it. Thank you. Staffing changes we are dealing with in the treasurer's office. We have held interviews the 27th, 28th, and again the following week. So we are looking to get that stabilized in our office. We've got 2 positions that are open and look to fill them hopefully by year's end. We're to the tail end of that process, and keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully we will be full staffed. And then lastly, just to update the 2 important dates that are coming up for our office. As I mentioned, our deadline is March 31st for payment of delinquent taxes. So January 17th, Wednesday, January 17th, 2018, our show cause hearing will be held. That's an opportunity for those people that are experiencing difficulties to come in and talk to us, to let us know, and hopefully we can connect them with resources like the Step Forward Michigan program, or maybe just offer them an extension, which is time to pay, in order to prevent foreclosure. And then in February, our judicial foreclosure hearing will be held before Judge Wilson on Wednesday, February 21st, 2018 at 1 p.m. So there's the latest and greatest for the treasurer's office, unless you have questions of me.
Thank you for the good report.
Does the shelter also sell dog licenses?
Not any longer. When we implemented the new program, it was more of an internal control for us, because now that we have 1-year licenses and 3-year licenses, and then it's a rolling calendar, we kind of need 4 different tags. Now we're down to 3 tags, so it becomes actually burdensome for the animal control to keep track of which tags they need to issue. So we brought it back in-house. 1, to work out the kinks with the new program to make sure that it was running properly and the records were being updated in the database properly, and 2, because of the internal controls with the tags.
Okay, so as we work it out, though, it is something that we can reconsider.
We can certainly do that, yes.
Thinking from a customer standpoint, you go into the shelter thinking maybe you can get a dog license, which I know I would have thought.
That used to be under the old program. Well, remember, you can get your dog license online, so you can,
Yeah, even better. That's where I get mine.
yeah, you can order your license when you're in your jammies at home, so
The best. Thank you.
that's right. Sure, great question. All right, thank you very much. Happy holidays to you all.
Thank you. Right back at you. Next up, we have friend of the court. Welcome, Sarah.
Good morning. I am before you today to seek the approval of the abolishment of our part-time caseworker position and replace it with a full-time caseworker position. As I listed in our background, back in 2014, when I worked to reorganize our caseworkers, we specialized 2 of our caseworkers to focus primarily on support review and parenting time. Then we upgraded our part-time customer service representative to a part-time caseworker so that we would have 3.5 FTEs working at the enforcement side of the caseloads. We did that because the state was telling us that they were going to be doing this mass case closure, getting rid of all the old cases, wiping out debt that was not going to be collectible, and they anticipated that between 5 and 10% of our caseload would be closed. Now, 3 years later, they only closed less than 3% of our caseload. So by having the 3.5 caseworkers, it's actually jumped up their caseloads by just under 800 cases per caseworker. So all of our goals to have a more focused and centered approach on enforcement, the proactive enforcement, being able to call families, try to get parties together and reach a better solution rather than just cattle call hundreds of people in and put them in jail and that approach to the enforcement, we haven't been able to totally transition with because our enforcement caseworkers are still bogged down not being able to do the work that they want to. Additionally, during the last 3 years, the State Court Administrator's Office located a source of revenue that the state had not been funding for the local counties with regards to the Medicaid enforcement. So not only do we collect child support, but we also collect medical enforcement or medical support for families. And families that are on Medicaid, that dollar amount goes to reimburse the state of Michigan, and then we then get paid for collecting that or a revenue stream. So it took several years for the retro payments to come in and for us to really get an understanding of what that revenue stream was going to look like. But that is actually what I'm seeking to fund this increase in the caseworker position. So it will have no out-of-pocket expense for the county for us to upgrade. That caseworker then will be able to work full-time as opposed to part-time on the same caseload that she's working right now, which will allow her to better manage her caseload, be able to return phone calls faster, and continue to improve our collections.
Thank you. Questions?
So Sarah, it's expense neutral then, essentially?
Correct.
Commissioner Rice?
Thank you. Sarah, the only question I have, obviously reading your report and listening to you here, your presentation here, this is certainly something that is needed, but also we're looking at this to be funded, in essence, through Medicaid. And obviously one of the big concerns with Medicaid, regardless of what entity utilizes Medicaid, every one of them that I'm a part of is very concerned about Medicaid dollars being taken away, changes in Medicaid dollars. Do you have any idea if this would affect the flow of money to pay for this full-time FTE?
There's no indication that there will be any changes with that. Remember, this is Medicaid for children, and so it's different as far as what the benefits are, and it's been very consistent for the last 3 years. So we don't anticipate that there's going to be any changes. But of course, just like anything else, if we find that that revenue stream changes, then we're going to be back to the drawing board and looking at better solutions. So.
Further questions or discussion? If not, I need a motion.
Support.
Have a motion support. All in favor of sending this on to the full board, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do a nice job down there.
Thank
I
you.
don't hear complaints. It used to be a source of complaints.
Thank you.
Moving on to 4D, Department on Aging. Welcome, Marcy.
Good morning, Commissioners. There's budget adjustments for year-end for Department on Aging with a net change of zero as far as all budgets within the department. It's primarily changes in grant funding. Sometimes at the end of the grant year, which ends September 30th, the Area Agency on Aging will say, well, we have these additional funds. Can you report more units or hours of home care, and we'll reimburse you for it. So that is one of the changes. And then also we requested a per meal reimbursement amount for Medicaid waiver-funded Meals on Wheels, and that was granted by the Area Agency on Aging in October, so that's additional revenue as well. So might there be any questions?
Questions, board? If no questions, I need a motion to support. You have motion support to send this to the full board, a budget adjustment. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Next up, we have facilities. Departmental reorganization. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. In front of you, you have a request to upgrade a position in our department from administrative clerk to administrative assistant. This is a position where we can fund with our existing budget. We don't have to hire another person. It's as our department continues to transition from a construction-style department towards a more vendor-based department, the need for an administrative assistant has become very clear. That's why this is the final piece of our reorganization, and I'm glad to present it this morning.
Thank you, Rick. Discussion or questions? Commissioner Elwell.
Rick, just one question from me. I'm probably going to ask a similar one later with finance, but you've got a note in here on the administrative letter that goes with it about the closed landfill requiring administrative oversight. I assume, is that the incinerator too, or just the landfill? And how much time is spent on that, and will that be forever, or?
Unfortunately, with the landfill being closed, it's our responsibility forever. At least as far as the state's concerned, we need to continue monitoring it, processing all the paperwork that the DEQ requires of us, keeping up with our stormwater licenses. It's pretty involved.
That also includes the testing of the leachate from it, or we contract to have that done, but we need to make sure it's done, is that it?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further question or discussion? If not, I need a motion and support to send this to the full board. We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, the same. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Right back at you, Rick. Next up, 4F, Human Services. We have to restate our health plan.
Good morning.
Make Iris happy.
It's that time of year again. Usually in December, we have some kind of amendment that we need to make to either the group health plan or the Section 125 cafeteria plan. In this case, we're actually restating the entire group health plan because not only is there kind of the annual change in something related to the Affordable Care Act, but because we are going from being a self-insured group health plan to fully insured, to do another amendment was going to be quite extensive. Plus, we've had prior amendments in previous years since the last restatement, and at this point, it just made sense to restate the entire group health plan. And then we also have an amendment for the Section 125 cafeteria plan, again related to upcoming changes in the Affordable Care Act that are related to claims. So you have the amendment and the full restatement. Not sure anyone probably really wanted to read all of that, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have one question. David, did you read all that? Okay, sir, on a serious note, any question or discussion? It's pretty much a formality we have to go through every year. Need a motion and support to send this to the full board. You have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thanks for explanation, too. Next up, we have IT Department. Welcome, Don.
Welcome, Mr. Chair, board members. In your packet is our semi-annual report for the department. It is a bit lengthy, about 21 pages, so I won't be going through it unless you have specific questions. I tried to cover the major areas in our department. Mainly, we're focusing on technology upgrades. We have a lot of our technology that is now end of life and needs replacing, and we've been working on that. We have been working on clearing up some outstanding lien audits, and we've been working on getting our presence on the internet to a more 21st century look and feel. This included the introduction of a smartphone app, and one of the things that I will call to your attention is that in the packet are statistics on the volume of traffic going to the website, And you'll note that traffic has increased significantly since the implementation of the new website and the smartphone app. We've also been conducting some demographic analysis on the visitors to the website. You will see some breakdowns in terms of age and gender. Part of the rationale behind this is to identify underserved populations and identify what content might be appealing and useful to them, as well as to identify additional content for our current visitors. I guess with that, I'm open to questions.
Questions? Commissioner Elwell?
Don, just one, I noted the lien audit by the, I think, first quarter or something in 2018. Is there any impact on that? I assume it's one issue with the other agencies that are served by lien through the county or not?
Actually, the impact will be a positive impact. The issue with the lien audit findings related to the fact that the data that was being transmitted through our network was not encrypted,
Right.
basically encryption in motion. This is caused by the fact that the network infrastructure is obsolete, and the switch gear is no longer supported. With the support of the board in the past year, we've been purchasing switches and replacing all our core switches. We have 2 more switches to go. That'll be accomplished this first quarter. And what will happen at that point is the entire network will be capable of encryption of data in motion. It will provide improved safety and reliability for not only lien users, but for all the county users.
Thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Don, how are we doing on, you say some of our programs are end of life, and you're doing upgrades. Are we on schedule with those, or running behind, or how are we doing?
Well, we are somewhat behind. Basically, the issue is that we have a lot of the technology that's obsolescent or bordering obsolescent. One example that I'll cite is we recently, with your approval, upgraded to Windows Server 2016 Data Center. This allowed us to more appropriately fit the needs because we were running into licensing issues with our software. And with this, that means our entire infrastructure will have to be upgraded. We also have a number of software applications that are legacy. I recently had staff run a census of software that was installed on county computers, and the count came to be several hundred. I believe it was in the range of 300. Now, that basically means that we don't have 300 different applications, but we may have multiple old legacy versions of one given product. So that presents a problem because the older products don't have the features. It becomes more difficult to support them. And there are, of course, unpatched vulnerabilities that are not corrected. So one of the things that we will be looking at in the near future as we get the backbones of the enterprise infrastructure in place is to identify the legacy software. We also have one major application that is several revisions behind that is a key application for the county. Even down to the Office suite, we're currently running Office 2010, which goes end of life and end of support in the next year. We are starting to move forward to implement Office 2016 to get that in place. We also have our email servers that are in need of upgrade. We need to move over to a more recent version. Unfortunately, all of this is a budget consideration, so we've been trying to phase things as we can with the budget. As an example, the upgrade to our email server was estimated by our vendor to, just for the software license upgrade alone, would be around $72,000. And then we also have upgrades.
Got a lot of work ahead of you then.
We do. We also have upgrades that will be needed for 911, and that's a fairly pricey item. There'll also be some other items with regard to application software that I haven't mentioned. So basically, we're talking about some serious effort to bring things at least to the current supported window.
Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas. Do you have a question, Carl? Okay, I'm sorry.
I saw in the document there that you had, on your to-do list, you had 50 projects.
Yes,
So that kind of tells us something right there, doesn't it?
yes, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you. Next up, item 4H, Administrator Controller, Proposed Purchase Policy.
I know we've had a number of discussions about this now. We've made a number of changes. I think the most recent change you see there is the local provision, item, I think it's 4, Roman numeral 4. We put should, because, we all want to do business locally. We encourage everyone to do business locally, but at the same time, we recognize that not in every case can we, so we don't want to put shall or must. We want to put should. And, of course, the last sentence in that gives me a little discretion as the administrator to develop a system, because there's a number of different means of doing different ways of making sure or trying to encourage or help locals be successful and letting all of the county know that they exist, if you will. I know there's a system called Mitten. Yeah, Mitten, that Deborah's been looking into, which looks very encouraging. And the reason I say that we're looking at these systems is the alternative is we're supposed to have perfect knowledge, and that's impossible for us to know every vendor possibility in the county, and we wouldn't want to necessarily miss someone. And this way, we're looking at means where they can also help themselves by trying to get on a list. Mitten, for instance, is a program where I don't remember how many counties, how many organizations. It was a couple hundred, wasn't it? Organizations, be it cities, counties, and the like, make sure that they post everything that they're looking for on there. So, as vendors, they would just routinely check that frequently, once a week or whatever the case may be. That way, they'd be sure to see those sort of things. And I think they can also put on with that type of tool. Markers, filters, if you will, where it would identify, hey, you said you were interested in Jackson County. They put something on and send them a notice, in effect, to take a look. So we're looking for not just that system, but other ways as well as technology changes and things develop. But know full well that it's very clear to us that this board, and frankly, it's very clear just to our employees, everybody, most of us, I should say, live in the county. Not all of us, but and we all, want our neighbors to be successful too. It's just that simple. Any questions, though, in regard to the policy?
Good guess. Mike, all of us do live in the county, commissioners, all of us do live in the county, yeah. I will volunteer that I was the one pushing the hardest on this, and my preference would have been to see the word shall instead of should, but I recognize that there's not enough support for that, and this is a compromise, and I'll support it in the end. But it's also noteworthy to mention, I think, for the other commissioners, that you and I have talked, and anytime we have a question about whether a specific product or item or service has been purchased by the county, we have the ability to call you, and you can pull out or get access to the documents and tell us who locally was approached about bids on this, anytime we choose to, correct?
Correct. That is our expectation. I know Deborah and I were discussing that very issue, and our expectation is that regardless of whether it's just a quote, I still expect every employee, department head or otherwise, to make notes. They have a quote sheet where they write down who they talked to and what day it was,
Right.
that sort of thing,
Right.
so that we have supporting documentation that, and indeed, we did actually check quotes on it. I think that's the very minimum we should be doing.
So for me, it was a balance between making things easy enough for elected officials and department heads to be able to move swiftly when they need to, and yet still fulfilling my belief of our obligation to oversee these things as best we can as a Board of Commissioners. So in the end, I'll end up supporting the policy.
Need another, you can't,
Are you on that committee?
okay,
He's sitting on the right, that's what.
okay.
I know this long meeting is confusing the chair, but
Okay, we have a motion support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Moving forward to 4I, the Finance Department. Welcome, Mr. Latham. First up, we have the budget adjustment for the landfill Public Works. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, these budget amendments have been approved by the Board of Public Works at their last meeting, and so be happy to answer any questions about them.
Any questions or discussion? Thank you. I need a motion and support to send this to full board. We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Move again to a finance item, item 4J, JCDOT budget.
Yes, these are the budget amendments for J.C. Dott's fiscal year. Net result here is an increase to revenue of $5.2 million and to expenses of almost $4 million. And this is mainly in the area where maintenance costs are reduced due to different plans that have occurred throughout the year, and an increase to the capital outlay cost, which reflects the equipment that was purchased during the year. The net here will result in over $1 million increase to the fund balance for the year. And let's see, I believe Christopher is still here to answer any specific questions about any line items.
Questions, discussion? Motion? We have a motion for and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Passes unanimously. Go on to the full board. Next up, item 4K, 2017 budget amendments.
Yes, these are the year-end budget amendments for the general fund, parks, golf courses, airport, and the fair fund. Again, this is the end of the year. This is our chance to true up all the accounts. That's why it's very lengthy. This is, I have a couple comments. Hopefully, we may answer and be happy to answer specific questions later. With respect to the fair fund, there's a number of adjustments where we're showing initially no budgeted items, and then we're increasing those items. During the year, with discussions with the Parks Director and the Fair Manager, we split out and created new departments, and the intent here is to isolate the true revenue and expense of the fair itself as an event. We also created new ones. For example, the one item with additional revenue is entertainment and concert and shows. Those are shows separate from the fair and therefore need to be broken out. Historically, all gate receipts were lumped into one total, and the gate receipts would consist of not only events of Fair Week, but also events throughout the year. So there are a number, I believe we set up 4 to 5 different departments. And so as we go into 2018, then we will be better able to identify the revenue expense with respect to each activity. And so forth. For example, the intent is to break out special events like the upcoming Beer Fest and so forth, other significant events. So,
Questions? Commissioner Elwell.
So before I fell asleep last night reading that other document, I went through this, and I'll volunteer that I shared some of my questions with Mike before the meeting, and I'm thinking that he shared them with Jim.
Yes.
To give you a heads up on it so I don't run you over. And I appreciate that. So Jim, looking on page 1 on County Treasurer, there's a $414,403 increase from the local community stabilization tax.
Yes.
Is that, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's a relatively new situation. And what that, they come up with a specified name, the State Department Treasury said you'll call it this. But what it is, it's the state's effort to reimburse us for the loss of personal property tax. So there is a change with respect to, whereas our tax levy then is reduced because we do not have the personal property tax included. So again, this item, is relatively new within the last year or so, and I believe we're going to be receiving more revenue than what I'm showing in the adjustment. But this is a situation where we did not budget for that previously because it's new.
So the amount is based on a formula then, probably, I would assume?
Yes, it is, yeah. It's based on
Okay.
a formula. Equalization Department could address specific questions, but basically it looks at the losses with respect to each particular company or industry that we've had over the years.
Moving forward, is it a budgeted amount, an approximation? Okay,
In 18, it is budgeted.
okay. And then moving down to the fair fund, that was one of the questions I had, was it shows $139,000 increase on gate receipts, and there was nothing there before. That's part of that movement that you were talking about?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And then the next page, still on, this is actually expenses now.
Okay.
Under the Board of Commissioners, Mike kind of told me, but we're showing $350 for workman's comp, which just seemed dumb to me, because we can't draw workman's comp, but apparently we still have to pay into it by some formula. I'm
Yes.
assuming, is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct. We report to our workers' comp carrier total salaries, so it's
Smart government workforce there.
yes.
Let me see. I'm on page 5 now, still on expenses, and I don't know if it has an explanation or not, but on the sheriff for full-time wages, it's $121,000 increase on regular full-time wages. No known explanation for that, or is there?
Well, yes, I might make a comment. At the beginning of each budgeting year, we have what's called a float adjustment, and the intent of the float adjustment is to account for potential vacancies. And so we move close to $400,000 out of the sheriff's budget, prosecuting attorney, and the court system, put it in contingencies. Then at the end of the year, we would true that up where vacancies were not as high as anticipated. So in this case, I have to restore a portion of what I took away previously in the year. Next question, I'm kind of answering this myself. The next question would be, well, when we take away more than we should have, why is that? And I would revisit the formulas we use. The formulas that we've used, we take a fixed percent of salary and fringes and move it to contingency. And perhaps we had to look at that and say, well, we shouldn't take as much away, because it doesn't make sense to take it away and then you have to give it back.
So Jim, that would be, for example, layman's terms, if they have an employee that leaves
Yep.
and you have a gap before they fill it.
Yes.
Those wages would come out and then you'd put them back at the end if necessary.
If necessary, yes.
So then down just a couple lines, wages overtime, it almost, well, the allocation for the year was 141,840, and we're adding 110,000 to that. That's nothing to do with that, is it?
Well, I guess you could argue it's related, although if there's
To fill the spots that have left?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
the sheriff always has excess overtime. Historically, seems to have a significant amount and so forth. But it is reflective of vacancies he has, so.
Well,
Here.
one of my questions to Mike between meetings was, I'm a little bit knowledgeable about assist to Lenawee County, so our sheriff assists down at the racetrack for 2 race events plus the concert down there. And I'm thinking that's all overtime, and I think it's fully reimbursed. I support doing it, but I think that I don't know if this accounts for that, but I think that should be evident somewhere in the budget, both the expense of that and the revenue for it. Are you familiar with any separation of that or that at all, or not?
I'm not aware of anything being separated, but that's something we should check into. In other words, if it's an annual event, we know it's going to happen every year, then we should budget for that.
There's
For the
3
OT.
events there. They do assist with overtime for the deputies, and again, I'm supportive of it. I just think we should know how much is outgoing, that it's coming in at the same rate, which I'm pretty confident it probably is. And I'm thinking that could be that potentially. So then on the same page, down to the marine law enforcement, wages full-time, on this form, on the 2017 budget, it shows nothing there, and it shows an increase of $22,390. But on the next document that we're going to do on the financials, it actually shows marine law enforcement, $34,690 budgeted with $39,160 actual, so 112%.
I believe
Why-
I have a mistake on the budget amendments, that there should be a budget amount there already, and I'll check on that for you.
So the blank one is missing. There should
Yes.
be something there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't, that can't be accurate with an increase of 22,000 either, can it?
That's correct. We'll fix
Okay.
that.
And then on the same page, county jail wages overtime. So we had 122,000 budgeted for overtime, and we're increasing that by 167,000. Is there any explanation for that, or?
I have not at this point, but I can check into that.
Yeah,
Discussion
I'd be
with the sheriff,
curious, because it's more than doubling it, 2.5 times almost,
Yeah.
it looks like. And I'm almost done. Page 6, the school liaison program, I have quit talking about that since we signed contracts, but I'm seeing a budget adjustment there of 13,260 increase, and it seems like we had just increased that a couple of
Yeah,
months
then
ago.
I did not increase it enough, it would appear, so.
And we think next year's budget for those programs is going to be all good, the numbers?
I will follow up on that, make
Okay.
sure it is.
Dave?
Yep.
Take a breath.
I'm almost done, Phil. I'm trying to hurry for you. I know that you're, going to break your record here. Page 7, non-departmental bank charges. We had 100,000 budgeted, and there's 30,000 increase. What is that for, and why that much of an increase?
Yeah, it's a number of things. There are the usual bank fees, in other words, Comerica charges us a monthly fee, but there's also credit card fees in there. And the credit card fees, unfortunately, include all county departments and include the various vendors that we use. In other words, and at the present time, in fact, I ask about this, well, it's difficult to break out the costs. In other words, some of these costs probably could be charged back to various departments, like the Parks Department and so forth. So it's a catch-all of those types of fees, those main two type of fees.
Tell me not late fees, right?
No, there's no
Okay.
late fees in here.
Okay. Okay, so on that same page, I've got circled the bottom line there, the net increase to the expense for the general fund is 483,000. Okay? And then, on the same page, under the Parks Fund Cascades, the casual wages have more than doubled from 25 grand to 35 grand.
Yes.
Is that part of that same thing that you're talking about, or is there some other
No,
explanation?
no, this is different here. For the year, the parks put in the splash pad, and so there was additional casual labor required for that, to oversee the operations when it's open.
Okay. So then the next page, page 8, under the golf courses, the casual wages there for the Cascades Golf Course are the same thing. 35,000 is what was budgeted for casual, and we're increasing that by 38,000, more than doubling it.
Yes, but the line above that, we're reducing part-time wages by 29.
Okay.
So, there is a difference, apparently, the staffing required at the golf course was casual versus the part-time.
So then page 9, under the fair, we had 350,000 budgeted for grandstand attractions, and we increased that by 293,000.
Yes, there was, my understanding, there was additional payments required for entertainment over and above what they anticipated, and I think there wasn't there? No, or at least
No,
what was communicated
The
to me.
budgeted number isn't even correct.
Yes,
It was, the last 2 years have been 500,000. But regardless, that number would still be adjusted because it's not just the concerts, it's also the free entertainment and the cheaper shows, the dirt shows. They're not included in this budget. And I know over the last almost year, Jeff and Denise and Jim are going through and redoing these because a lot of these numbers are not correct in just the normal cost of doing business with the fair itself. And then
Okay.
it also includes, in this, I'm pretty confident, and this is where it needs to be broken down further, is there was an additional concert outside of Fair Week, and that's put in there as well.
Okay.
So
you
it's
just-
not an accurate, to begin with, that
But you
350
think that
isn't even
350 is
I
not
know
accurate?
it's not accurate.
Can you
Yeah.
check on that, Jim,
Yes,
and
I will,
advice too?
yeah.
Okay. So then overall, I think that's my last question. So bottom line, was that 480,000 the net increase to the budget after revenue adjustments or not?
no, we're increasing revenue to offset it, so it's a net zero.
That
Okay?
480 is
Yes.
net?
Yes, net zero, because we increased on the revenue side in the general fund mainly for the personal property tax reimbursement.
Thanks for bearing with me.
No problem, sir.
I'm set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, David. Okay, I need a motion and support to pass to okay the budget amendment.
I would move to approve the budget amendments.
Have motion support, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Move on to 4L, our monthly financial statements. This will be for the
Yes,
month of October.
for year-to-date through October, our budget benchmark is 83.3%. Year-to-date actual expenditures are 81.1, so we're below the benchmark. However, based on a three-year average, that percent is 80.8, so we're a little bit above the average. Revenue side, general fund revenue is at 82.3%, and that's a little bit below the three-year average, but it's above our budget benchmark. So be happy to answer any questions there.
Yeah, I was kind of looking through the last document in comparison to this one, and I think the only comment I got, Jim, is back to the school liaison program. That one, in the six-page document that we're on now, it's got budgeted amount of $246,250 for the school liaison. And if you were on page 6 of the previous document, the school liaison program, it's got it broken down in about 4 lines, but it doesn't add up to the 246 as currently budgeted, but,
The budget amendment document, one thing is, I think, as we said, I think there's a mistake there. There was an omission there, number one. Number two, the budget amendment document does not include all the accounts
Okay,
for
yeah.
that, because I do not list those accounts.
only the ones you're adjusting?
Yeah, the only ones
Okay.
where there's a change.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I have Rick sticking around here if there's any technical questions on some of the facility side. We're working with facilities to have them come in and do floor stripping from the wax and then reapplying that wax. We have a longtime historian, Kirk Snyder, who's been there for a long time, and he cannot remember the last time those floors have been waxed. And so we had facility staff come in to do that, and in the process of stripping the wax off of our gym floor, and we're not quite sure if it was the solvent or the chemical used in the stripping of the process, or just the moisture that was used. But we have floor that's almost 50 years old, tiles that's almost 50 years old, and the adhesive backing on the conservative side, probably about a third of the tiles ended up curling and breaking down the adhesive connection with the tile. The mastic, which I've been learning a lot this last week on mastic and adhesive, and ACM, asbestos-containing material, is what the adhesive is underneath the tile. And so because of all of that, we had our facility staff and management, as well as then 2 local flooring contractors come in and look at it, and all of their assessment was that it is not able to be repaired. And so we've had to move forward with pulling up those tiles. I do have a requirement as far as state licensing that all the youth must have at least 1 hour of large muscle exercise a day, as well as then our school component has a physical education class that they do. And so this gym is kind of heavily used. It's kind of a weird situation that we're down to year end, and looking at having a considerable increase in revenue this year with rental beds, that I do have the income revenue that can help offset this request. One contractor has gotten back with us to give us a quote. We anticipate within the next couple days the additional contractor, both local contractors, that the county has long-standing history with and doing a lot of the floorings within the county facilities. The first that they came back with is the VCT, which is essentially the standard current tile flooring that we have within the building. I have pros and cons within that. It does require annual, or it does require the maintenance within that. The facilities department does not provide regular or cleaning services, scheduled, that's a great, scheduled services out at the youth center. Our staff, as well as with our kids, do community service to earn some of that. And so the upkeep with that, that's kind of a con in my mind, but it is a lower project number. The LVT doesn't require the annual maintenance upkeep. However, it does require more attention for moisture control, as well as it's used in some of the other county facilities. I know that the Department of Aging has it in their dining room, but it's not used a lot in a gymnasium type setting. And the concern is, unfortunately, we get elbows to the nose and we have blood, and trying to clean up and disinfect, there's some concern with the moisture of needing to do that with this flooring in a gym setting. The option 3 is the sheet vinyl, which is used, it's a sports floor intentionally used for in a gym type setting. That's very little maintenance to no maintenance, and is able to last a long time as well. It does have a slight padding to help absorb some of the shock. Northwest just recently had this put into their training, one of their smaller gyms. I know Hudson Schools has had it in their community gym for the last 6 years, and it's a known material for that. With having the floor out, with having the baseboard out, it's kind of a logical time to look at potentially painting in the gym. It's been over almost 20 years since there's been any paint job in that gym, and them being able to get in there without having to have care for of the gym flooring and such. There's a likeliness of a lower cost to having them be able to just get in there and paint and not having to be concerned for taping off and damage to any type of floor. Because I'm coming to you, this all happens within the last week to 10 days almost. There's still a lot of unknowns, and so it's a little unorthodox of what I'm asking for. I understand that. Ultimately, my recommendation is for the sheet vinyl and requesting for the gym to be painted, offsetting the cost of this not to exceed $45,000 with the revenue that we brought in with the bed rentals throughout the year. We are working with Joni, who is working with MMRMA, our insurance company, for a potential insurance claim. Should that be accepted, then that max would be less whatever would be brought in for the insurance claim. Questions?
Well, we'll let the insurance folks figure that one out. I think we're dealing with 50-year-old vinyl tile that just has been cleaned and cleaned and cleaned, and it lost adhesion, but yet I'm not an expert, so.
Right.
So, Rick, your recommendation is the sheet also because it'll hold up better, or what? Substantially more, but,
Yeah,
I
and
think
less
it would be
maintenance.
more durable over the years, especially with the fact that Jeremy's staff are the ones who have to clean it. So if we went with the regular vinyl composition tile, it would require regular maintenance. And that's where, I mean, I know what you guys are dealing with. So that's why I recommend going with the sheet vinyl.
and the seam won't be an issue, correct?
No, the seams are sealed on those.
Called heat welding.
Right. And then
New word I've learned.
I think it's noted, Rick, that the owner's responsible for removing everything else, so your people are capable of taking care of all that?
It's one of the great things of our department. We're licensed asbestos contractors, so we can do that type of work, and actually over the past weekend have performed that. We're just at the point where we're at the point of no return. A third of the floor is delaminated. What do you do? It's just made sense, whatever way we went, just to get that stuff out of there.
And then, Jeremy, the money that you've taken in for bed renting is above and beyond what was budgeted. You're talking about 70-some thousand, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I would move the request.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Merry Christmas. Moving on to item 5, we have the claims. Everybody.
Move to pay the claims.
Do we have them down there?
Where
are they?
They came back that way.
All right.
Did it?
All right. We have a motion support, pay the claims.
Carl?
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same.
Sign
No other minutes. Finance is our only scheduled report for January. We return to public comments. We have no public comment. Committee member comments. Any committee member? Commissioner Elwell.
Mr. Chairman, do you have the time?
Yeah, I think we tied your meeting.
Thank you.
Beep. Any serious commissioner comments? Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. How come we have